Armin sat hunched over his desk, the faint hum of fluorescent lights filling the empty office. The final report was due tomorrow, and the numbers on his screen blurred together after hours of staring. Outside, dusk had long given way to darkness. His, phone buzzed. Another message from his roommate asking when he'd be home. Armin ignored it. He couldn't leave yet, not until this was perfect. Across the floor, footsteps approached. He looked up. Rehan stood there, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, a faint smile softening his sharp features. "You're still here," Rehan said, voice warm and low. Armin's heart gave a small leap. "Just trying to wrap this up." Rehan nodded, gaze flicking to the screen. "Dedicated as always," he paused. "Listen, I need a favor." Armin swallowed. "Of course. There's a client proposal I need to polish tonight," Rehan continued, tone casual but laced with something Armin couldn't quite place. "Could use an extra set of eyes. You up for staying a bit longer?" His pulse quickened. Alone, with Rehan. The idea both thrilled and unnerved him. For months, Armin had harbored a quiet admiration for the man. It wasn't just his looks, though those were undeniable. It was his presence. The effortless charm, the calm authority, the rare moments of warmth that hinted at something deeper. "I'm happy to help," Armin said, hoping his voice sounded steadier than he felt. Rehan's smile deepened. "Great. Come to my office in 10?" Armin nodded, watching as Rehan strode away. His heart hammered in his chest. He forced himself to finish the report, each keystroke a battle against the tide of anticipation rising within him. When 10 minutes had passed, he gathered his notebook and headed down the hall. Rehan's office felt different tonight. The overhead lights were dimmed, a single lamp casting a soft glow. The city skyline glittered beyond the glass wall. "Come in," Rehan said, waving him toward the chair opposite his desk. Armin sat, trying to appear composed. Rehan leaned forward, sleeves pushed to his forearms, the faint scent of cologne drifting across the space between them. "You've been doing excellent work lately," he said. "I notice these things." Heat crept up Armin's neck. "Thank you. That means a lot." Their eyes met, held for a beat too long. Rehan looked away first, opening a folder. They worked side by side, reviewing slides and refining language. Rehan occasionally leaned over, their shoulders nearly brushing. Each accidental touch sent sparks racing through Armin's nerves. At one point, Rehan stood to fetch coffee. When he returned, he handed a cup to Armin without asking. Their fingers brushed. "Thought you could use this," Rehan said, voice low. "Thanks," Armin replied, breath catching. The hours slipped by. The city lights blurred against the darkened windows. In the quiet, a strange intimacy settled over the room, unspoken, charged. Between edits, conversation drifted to personal things. Rehan spoke of his early years in the industry, of mistakes, and lessons learned. "It can be a lonely path sometimes," he admitted, gaze distant. Armin hesitated, then said softly, "I imagine. But you always seem so together." Rehan's smile was tinged with something sad. "Appearances." He looked at Armin, expression open, searching. "It's rare to find someone who really listens." Armin's chest tightened. He wanted to say more, to bridge the fragile space between them, but words failed him. They returned to work, but the air had shifted. Every glance seemed to linger longer. Every silence felt full. Near midnight, they saved the final draft. Rehan leaned back, exhaling. "Well done," he said. "Couldn't have done it without you." "It was nothing," Armin murmured, pulse still racing. Rehan rose, stretching. "It's late. I should let you go." He hesitated, then added softer. I'm glad you stayed. Arman stood, notebook in hand, their eyes locked once more. We should do this again sometime, Rehan said, voice gentle. Arman swallowed, heart in his throat. I'd like that. Outside, the corridor was silent. As Arman walked toward the elevator, his mind swirled with possibilities. He had come for work, but left with something far more intoxicating. He didn't know yet that the night's promise would unravel into something far darker. The days that followed blurred into a strange, charged rhythm. Each morning, Arman arrived at the office early, hoping to catch a glimpse of Rehan before the rest of the team settled in. And more often than not, Rehan would greet him with a faint smile, a nod that seemed meant for him alone. That one late night had changed everything. Arman found himself replaying it in his mind, the quiet conversation, the gentle warmth in Rehan's voice, the promise that hung in the air as they parted. He'd left the office floating, filled with a reckless hope he barely dared name. And then, as if fate wished to feed that hope, Rehan's attention toward him began to deepen. So, meetings, Rehan sought his input more often, eyes lingering when Arman spoke. When others filed out for lunch, Rehan would sometimes remain behind, catching Arman's gaze with a knowing look. "Walk with me," he said one afternoon. They strolled through the glass corridors, sunlight streaming in. "You've been pushing." "Yourself," Rehan said. "I see it." Arman flushed. "I just want to do well." "You are," Rehan said, pausing. "You're different from the others. You care." The words lodged in Arman's chest. He couldn't tell if they were meant as a compliment, a confession, or a test. After that, invitations came more freely. "Could use your help after hours." "Again," Rehan would say, with that faint, private smile. Each time, Arman agreed without hesitation. The late nights became a ritual. By then, Arman barely noticed the exhaustion. How could he, when each hour alone with Rehan felt like a secret world they inhabited together? One evening, as the office emptied around them, Rehan appeared beside Arman's desk. "Come, I've got something better than coffee tonight," he said, eyes twinkling. They retreated to Rehan's office, where he produced 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey from a cabinet. "Just one," he said with a conspiratorial wink. Arman laughed, nerves coiling inside him. They drank slowly, conversation wandering from work to life to more personal things. Rehan leaned back, gaze shadowed. "You ever feel like you're living for everyone but yourself?" Arman hesitated. "Sometimes." "I do," Rehan said quietly. "Too often." The room seemed to shrink. The distance between them felt fragile, charged. "You always seem so in control," Arman said. Rehan's smile was weary. "That's the trick. Appearances." He set his glass down. "I envy your honesty." Arman met his gaze, heart pounding. The air between them pulsed with something unsaid. That night, Rehan walked him to the elevator. As the doors slid open, Rehan's hand brushed Arman's arm, a light, lingering touch that set his skin ablaze. "Sleep well," Rehan murmured. Arman barely slept at all. Each subsequent evening seemed to draw them closer. The subtle gestures, a hand on his shoulder, a glance that lingered too long, stoked the fire inside him. Was this real, or was he imagining it? One late night, as they worked through a stubborn presentation, Rehan suddenly grew quiet. "I shouldn't say this," he began, voice low, "but sometimes I feel I can be more myself around you than anyone." Arman's breath caught. "I feel that too." Their eyes locked. For a moment, the air brimmed with possibility. But then Rehan blinked, gaze flickering away. "We should finish." "This," he said, voice tightening. Arman obeyed, though his heart screamed to bridge the gap between them. The next morning his phone buzzed, a message from Rehan. "Lunch? Just us." Arman stared at the screen, pulse racing. By now he was certain of it. Rehan wanted him, as surely as he wanted Rehan. The glances, the words unsaid, they couldn't be meaningless. He replied, "Yes, of course." That afternoon, they lunched at a quiet corner cafe, conversation easy, laced with undercurrents. Rehan seemed freer there, unguarded. At one point, Rehan touched his wrist lightly, fingers grazing skin. Arman's breath hitched. "You deserve more than this." "Office," Rehan said softly. "You're special." By the time they parted, Arman was dizzy with hope. He walked back into the office, certain of one thing. This was no mere work friendship. It was the beginning of something more, something neither of them dared name. Yet. And so, when Rehan's next invitation came, another late night, Arman said yes without hesitation. He had no way of knowing that this fragile hope would soon shatter. The next few weeks unfolded like a dream. Every late-night message from Rehan sent a jolt of anticipation through Arman. Every shared glance became a silent promise. Work no longer felt like work. It felt like waiting for moments with Rehan, moments where the office faded and it was just the two of them, suspended in something unspoken. Yet beneath the warmth, a question began to stir. Why had Rehan not taken the next step? Not once had he voiced what Arman felt so strongly. Not once had he closed the distance between them. Still, Arman told himself to be patient. Perhaps Rehan needed time. Perhaps he feared risking what they already had. Then came the night that changed everything. The office was quieter than usual. Most of the team was away at a conference. Only a few remained. And Rehan, of course, had asked Arman to stay late again. They worked side by side in his office, a comfortable rhythm settling between them. At one point, Rehan glanced at his phone and frowned. "Give me a moment," he said. "I need to check on something." He left the room, leaving the door ajar. Arman sat alone, absently scrolling through slides, mind wandering. That's when he heard it, voices drifting from the corridor, Rehan's and someone else's, low, urgent. Without meaning to, Arman rose, drawn by the tone. He stopped just short of the door, heart pounding. "Kept him on the hook long enough," the other voice was saying. Rehan's reply was quiet, clipped. "I know. But he's useful, gets things done without asking questions." A pause. "And, when you're done?" Another silence, then Rehan sighed. "Then it's done. He's young, he'll move on." The words struck like a blade. Arman's breath caught. His chest constricted painfully. He stumbled back to his chair, hands trembling. When Rehan returned moments later, Arman couldn't meet his gaze. "You all right?" Rehan asked, brow furrowed. Arman forced a smile. "Just tired." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Every word, every glance felt hollow now, stripped of meaning. He left as soon as he could, barely able to hold himself together until he reached the street. Outside, the cold night air stung his skin. He walked aimlessly, phone buzzing with a message from Rehan. "You okay? I hope tonight didn't tire you out too much." Arman stared at the screen, tears clouding his vision. How could he have been so blind? Every touch, every kind word, all calculated. He wasn't special. He was a means to an end. The next morning, he avoided Rehan entirely. When they finally crossed paths, Rehan greeted him with a smile as if nothing had changed. Arman forced himself to speak. "We need to talk." Rehan's smile faded. He gestured toward an empty conference room. Inside, Arman shut the door and faced him. "I heard you. Last night, in the hall." For a moment, Rayhan's expression flickered. Surprise, then something harder. "I see," he said quietly. "So it was all fake?" Arman's voice broke. "All of it?" Rayhan's gaze cooled. "Arman, you misunderstood. I never promised anything." "You led me on," Arman whispered. "You knew what I felt." Rayhan exhaled, weary. "I needed your help. You were willing. Don't turn this into something it wasn't." The words crushed whatever hope remained. Arman stared at him, the man he'd admired, trusted, cared for, now a stranger in front of him. Without another word, he turned and walked out. The rest of the day passed in a fog. His desk felt foreign. The office felt suffocating. When evening came, Arman didn't stay late. He gathered his things and left without looking back. Outside, the city lights blurred through unshed tears. Everything he'd believed in, every moment that had seemed so precious, shattered. Yet beneath the grief, something else stirred. Resolve. He would not let this define him. He would not let Rayhan's betrayal consume him. But first, he had to face the pain, and in doing so, perhaps find a way to heal. The days that followed moved with an aching slowness. Arman came to the office later, left earlier. He avoided Rayhan's gaze, his presence, even his messages, though they kept coming, polite, empty. "Don't take things so personally." The words echoed, bitter and sharp. At night, sleep eluded him. His mind replayed every moment, the smiles, the touches, the quiet talks, all now tainted, hollow. How foolish he had been, letting hope take root where only manipulation had grown. But grief, Arman realized, could not last forever. Pain had edges, but it also had limits. One evening, after yet another restless night, he stood before his mirror and stared at the pale, tired reflection. "This isn't who I am," he whispered. And so began the slow return. He reconnected with old friends he'd pushed aside during those long, late nights. Over quiet coffees and gentle conversations, he began to speak, not in full, not at first, but enough to unburden the weight on his chest. "You cared," one friend said simply. "That isn't weakness." The words stayed with him. Work, Arman kept his distance. He focused on his tasks, poured himself into projects, not to impress, not for anyone else, but to remind himself of his own worth. He refused Rayhan's next invitation to stay late. Then another. Eventually, the invitation stopped. Rayhan, for his part, seemed unchanged, still charming, still confident. But to Arman, it no longer mattered. Weeks passed. Slowly, the raw edge of betrayal dulled. The memories remained, but their power faded. Then came the farewell party. The company was restructuring. Rayhan was leaving for a new role elsewhere, the very move Arman had overheard. Arman debated not attending. But in the end, he went. Not for Rayhan. For himself. The event was crowded, voices rising above soft music. Arman lingered near the edge, watching as Rayhan made his rounds, smiling, shaking hands, as charismatic as ever. Their eyes met once across the room. A flicker of surprise passed through Rayhan's gaze, then something unreadable. Later, as the crowd thinned, Rayhan approached. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said quietly. Arman met his gaze, steady now. "I didn't come for you." A pause. Rayhan's smile faltered. "I suppose I owe you an apology." "No," Arman said softly. "You owe yourself the truth." Rayhan's expression shifted. Regret, perhaps, or the closest thing to it he could manage. Arman felt no triumph, no bitterness, only release. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Outside, the night air was cool, crisp. Arman drew a deep breath. The city stretched before him, vast, alive, full of possibilities. He was not the same man who had once waited breathlessly for another's glance. He carried scars now, yes, but also strength. In time, perhaps, he would trust again. But tonight, it was enough to stand beneath the stars, heart unburdened, the future his own once more. And as he walked into the darkness, a quiet promise stirred within him. He would never lose himself for someone else's approval again.